coding a chess game and having ChatGPT play against ChatGPT. Hey everyone, this is Keystrokes. I'm a senior software engineer at one of the FANGs, and I like to make videos on all the latest AI ML trends like ChatGPT, LangChain, AutoGPT, as well as on lead code problems and interview tips, and basically anything and everything about computer science. Today we will be coding a chess game which will be played by ChatGPT against ChatGPT. So we'll be building a very simple game of chess which will have a chessboard, all the moves that were made, and just a very simple UI. But the fun part will be the players that we'll have. Usually if you play this in a single player mode, you'll be playing against the computer. And with ChatGPT, of course we'll want that computer to be ChatGPT. But instead, how about it's computer versus computer, where both the computers are ChatGPT? So it basically becomes a ChatGPT versus ChatGPT game. And we all can guess, in the end, the winner will be ChatGPT. But which one? And because we are building this whole game, we won't really be using the chat feature of ChatGPT, and rather we'll use all the APIs of ChatGPT, so it'll be completely automated. Also, you must be wondering, how are the two players different? Well, we'll be varying the temperature settings of the two instances of ChatGPT, and we can even keep them as same. And it's really up to us how creative we want ChatGPT to be. Anyhow, I think we are ready to build this. But before we jump into our IDE, if you're excited to build this, then please don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to my channel. And you can show me your support by buying me some coffee and subscribing to Patreon. You can also set up one-on-ones with me where I can help you through basics of coding, help you with interview preparations, discuss various computer science topics like data structures, algorithms, ChatGPT, API programming, and so on. And if you have any project ideas and you need any help with execution, then I'm more than happy to be a consultant on the project. And just feel free to reach out to me through this form and we can discuss anything and everything about computers and coding. Anyhow, so let's jump into our IDE and let's have ChatGPT play against each other. Okay, so here I have VS Code and I've set up a NextJS project where we just say hello world. And before we start, let's install some dependencies. And the first dependency will be chess.js. So we'll do npm i-s and we'll put chess.js in there. Then the next dependency will be React chessboard, and then the final one will be OpenAI. So chess.js has some logic to understand how the chess game is going. React chessboard, it can be used to represent the chessboard visually based on a game that's going on. And then OpenAI obviously provides OpenAI API to interact with ChatGPT. Okay, now that we have our dependencies down, let's start a server. For that we'll do npm run dev, and that should start a server on port 3000. So let's go to the browser and see if it renders right. So refreshing this page, we can see that it prints hello world. Okay, so let's jump into some coding. So the first thing we'll do is define some states. The first state we want is the game. So we can do const game and set game equal to use state, and we'll initialize our game as new chess. Okay, then the next state we'll need is if the game has started. So for that will be start, and then we have a set start, and the state here will be false. Now the next thing we'll do is make a note of the players, as in who is the active player right now. So let's make it active player, set active player, and our players could either be 0 or 1. So we'll make the active player as 0 to start with, where 0 plays the white pieces and 1 plays the black pieces. And I'll quickly fix this. This should be set start. I would also like to make a note of the count of the moves. So let's create another state. Let's call it current move index, and let's do set current move index and set it to 0 as well. And then we'll need a winner. So winner, then set winner, and this could just be a string. And by default, maybe we can say start the game to find the winner. Okay, and I'm going to move this return statement towards the bottom because I like to have states on the top and then the final return in the bottom. And I just noticed that it's saying one of the files should be marked as client, because by default NextJS treats everything as backend component. For that we need to add this, use client, and yeah, now the error goes away from here. And before we forget, let's define our players as well. I'll create a new type for it. Let's call it player. And for that, the color could either be white or black. We will let it have a temperature, which will be a number. Then we can maintain a count of number of wins and how many draws have happened. And let's define those players over here as well. So these will be players and set players and use state, which will be an array of player, and we can mark this as an array. and let's define our first player. I'll just copy this and paste it here. Let's make our first player be white. Let's make the temperature as 0, wins as 0, and draws as 0. And I'm going to shut my server right now. My laptop isn't liking that it's compiling every time. We'll start our server again once we are ready to see something. So let me copy this, and this time the color will be black. Temperature, let's put it as 1, and wins and draws as 0 each. And let's do one more thing. Let's start defining our chessboard here. So we'll have a div here. Now let's create another div inside this. Now this div can contain our chessboard, and then we can have another div where we can have all the moves and what's really happening with the game. And within the chessboard itself, we'll have two divs, 1 and 2. So we'll actually put chessboard over here. Then right underneath it, we'll have player data. And I think this will be a good layout to start with. So let me make them real comments. And the first thing we'll do is add a chessboard. So let's do chessboard from React chessboard. Give it some ID. Let's say a basic board. And the position will be game.fen. It needs a closing tag. So let's make it a self-closing tag. And that should be good. Well, let's start our server again to see how it looks like. So the server is running. Let's go to our browser and refresh. And yep, we have a very nice chessboard here. Next, let's add some details about our players. So here, let's run a map on players.map, and we can do this as player. And this can return a div itself. And the first thing this can have is the player ID, or more like the index, which we can say as player index +1, and let's define the index up here. So it's player and the index, and then we can have the color it's playing, which will be player.color. Well, let's go back to our browser and see how it looks like. Yeah, on the bottom we see we have player 1, color white, player 2, color as black. Let me just add these colons here. And then lastly, let's show the temperature it's playing with as well. The temperature, and this will be the temperature. So going back to our browser, looking down, we can see the right temperatures are mentioned here as well. Okay, great. So now let's see what we need to put here. So here we can have some button, then on click, it can do on click start, and we'll define that method. So let's just do on click start, and we should have some text in here. We can probably say if the game has started, we can say stop game, otherwise start game. And to give this behavior, we can have another condition here. If the game has not started, then it can call on click start, otherwise we'll just set start to false. And let me shut the server. It's again taking over my computer. So leaving it like this, and we'll come back to starting the server when we are ready. We can give another button which will reset the game. So let's just say reset, and on click, it can call reset game method that we can create. And let's disable this if the game is already running. And let's add just a few more information like who the active player is right now. So let's say current player will be active player +1, just so that we show 1 instead of a 0. Then let's show who the winner is. For that we can do winner as the winner. And then we'll also show all the moves that have happened. So let's say as moves. And in here we can do a similar loop. We haven't defined moves yet, but we'll simply do moves.map. It will just be a move. It will be a string. And we can do return div, and we can just return the move as the content in there. And let's give it a key. Key will be the move it made, and let's say the current timestamp. So that'll be new date.getTime, and that should be unique. Let me put $1 here. Perfect. Oops, this backtick is at the wrong spot. Okay, this looks good. We need to do the same thing for this players that we defined here. So let's give it a key here, and this could be player and the index. That should be unique enough as well. Okay, so we need to define 3 things: on click start, reset game, and moves. So let's start with moves. So scrolling up here where we have the states defined, let's create moves. Maybe we can do it right after game. Oops. So this becomes moves, set moves, use state. The type of this can be a string array, and we can start with an empty array. Okay, so now the next thing we need to define is on click start. Now for on click start, let's define a method up here, const on click start. Now in this, we'll just flip the start to the opposite value. So basically all we'll do is this, and we'll also set the winner. So set winner as game in progress, so that when the game is going on or when the game is started, we can change the winner on the UI and say that the game has already started, because at first we are saying start the game to find the winner. And once they start the game, the status changes to game in progress. And then in the end, we actually know who the winner will be. Okay, so now the next thing we have to define is reset game. Let's create that one here really quick as well. So const reset game, and creating this as a method, we will reset stuff. So it's basically all of this, starting with set game as new chess. Then we have set moves as an empty array. So making set moves as empty array. Then we have set start as false. Then set active player will be 0 again. Then set current move index will be 0. And then set winner will be the default text we had before. Okay, this looks good. Let's start our server and see if we face any issues. So the server has started. Let's go to our browser and refresh this. And if we scroll down, we see start game and reset game, which is not looking too good right now, but let's click on it to see if something changes. So when we click on start, this changes to stop game. We see game in progress. And when we click on stop game, this still says game in progress, which is fine for now. And then if we hit reset, it changes the winner to start the game to find the winner. Okay, so that's a good progress so far. Now let's add some real stuff to it to actually make this interactable. So let me stop the server first and let's continue coding. So let's create a use effect, which will basically rely on start state. So if the value of start is true, then we should make a move. Otherwise, we'll have to do something. I'm not sure what that is exactly. So let's see what we'll do in make move. So let's making this a function. In here, the first thing we'll check if the game is over. Then there's no move to make, and then basically we'll find the winner. So find the winner and be done. Otherwise, we'll get the next move. Then we'll make that move, make the move in the game, and then set the active player to the next player. And then somehow we have to rerun the make move again. And for that, maybe we can use set timeout and just call the same method over and over again. So how about we do set timeout, and in here we can do make move. And we know that get the next move will basically be an async call. So this whole method should be async. And because this is async, this needs an await, and hence this will be an async as well. And here, because we are using set timeout, we might want to use refs for our state variables. Otherwise the values might not be up to date. So let's do that first. Let's create refs for everything that we need. So let's do const current player. This could be use ref of the active player. Then we'll also need to know if a game is running right now. So let's call this is running, and this could represent the start value. Then we might want the moves as well. So let's name this as all moves. And then we'd also like the current move index as that's the last thing. Let's call it this. Let's create a use effect for this as well. So use effect current player basically becomes active player or current player.current. Let's do it for the rest of these. So is running becomes a ref for start. Then same for moves. It will be all moves. Then you have current move index, and this will be a ref as well. And they will all rely on each of these things that we just made a note of. So active player, start, moves, and current index. Now, I'm not a front-end expert. I don't know React a lot. And if there's a better way to do it, then please post them in the comments. And even send a pull request, because this will be on Git. Okay, this looks good. So now let's go back to our make move. In here, the first thing we should do is if the game is even running. So basically is running current. If it's not true, then just return, because the game is not really running. Otherwise, we'll have to check if the game is over. So we can do game.is game over. And if the game is over, then we'll get our winner somehow. So basically find the winner, and we can set start to false. And then we can return early as well from this. Then the next one is to get the move. So let's do const move is equal to await get next move. We'll create this function in a few. Then once you get the move, we'll do game.move, and we'll pass the move that we just found. So we made the move in the game. Now, as we made the move, let's update our moves as well. So for that, we can use set moves. And to this, we can first get moves or all moves, which is our new ref dot current. And to this, we'll prepend our current move. So that will be, let's say, the index of the current move. So current move index ref dot current, and we'll add a +1 to it. So 0 becomes 1, just looks better. Then we'll talk about the player who made this move. So player, then current player dot current, and again +1, so that it looks good. And then the move that was made. So basically the move. Okay, so our moves are set now. And then we'll determine the next player. So next player equal to current player dot current plus 1, and we'll mod it by 2, so it keeps going between 0 and 1. So mod by 2. So we'll do next as set active player as the next player that we have determined, and then we'll set the current move index to be the current move index ref plus 1, because now the next player will be moving the next move, and this should be dot current. Okay. And one last thing we should have here is store the timer somewhere. So let's create a ref for this as well, and we can store this in timer. So let's create timer up here with all the other refs, and I'll just call it timer use ref, and it'll be null to start with, and I'll just make it any for now. Now coming back to this one, we have start changes, and if start is false, let's clear our timer as well. So timer current and clear interval, and we can do timer.current. Okay, so this looks pretty much good. We need to find the winner next, and then we need to find our next move. So let's first work on finding our winner. And for that, let's do this. The first set winner will be get winner, which we'll define. So copying this get winner thing, going down here, let's create a new method called get winner, and let's make this a method. Now in here, we need to get the winner as well as update our player states, so it reflects the right wins and draws. So let's do this. Const player1 equal to spread operator players 0. So we get our first player. Let's do this for the second player as well. And then let's define a string which stores our winner, which can be empty to start with. Now let's see all the conditions we need to add. So if game is checkmate, that is if we have an actual winner, then we need to see whose turn is next. So if game.turn is white, then player 1 wins. So player 1 dot wins plus plus, and then of course winner is player 1. Let's do this the other way around. Otherwise, if game turn is black, then player 2 wins and the winner is player 2. If this is not a checkmate and rather it's a draw, so game is draw, in that case player 1 draw plus plus and player 2 draw plus plus, and the winner basically will be a draw. If none of these conditions match, then we probably don't have a winner. So no winner. I'm not a chess expert, so I'm not sure what condition will this happen, but please let me know in comments if this can ever happen at all. If not, we'll just throw an exception here. Anyhow, once we have our winners, we'll first set our players to be player 1 and player 2 with their updated values, and then we'll return the winner. And I forgot the parenthesis. Okay, so this looks good. We have our winners. And now the next method that we need is get next move. So let's define that as well. Let's do const get next move. Let's make this a method. And this is where we have to do our prompt engineering, calling the ChatGPT API, and to basically get our next move. So before we do that, how about we simulate how the API call will look like? So whenever we make an API call, there will be a delay. So let's add an await and do new promise, set timeout rs 1000. So it will wait for a second, and let's make this an async method. And then we can return a dummy move. Let's say we'll get a list of dummy moves. So dummy moves, and we can get the index of the dummy move as current move index ref dot current, and let's just trim it just in case. And I'll be right back with some list of dummy moves. Okay, so now I have some dummy moves. Let me declare it somewhere. Let's just do it here. Const dummy moves equal to this whole list that I found from one of the sample games online. Let me fix this, and that should be good enough. Let's start the server and see if we face any issues. The server is running. Let's go to our browser and let me refresh this. Okay, everything looks good so far. Let's click on start, and I'm expecting this game to start playing based on these dummy moves. So let's click on start. And yes, we can see some moves are being made. And that's decent enough. Let's click on stop and see if that works as well. So stop the game. And yep, looks like the game has stopped now. And let's reset it. And it moves all the pieces back. Perfect. So now the game works with our dummy move. Now we just need to write our prompts, which will then help us get these moves from ChatGPT. And before we do that, let me just beautify this a little so we don't have to scroll down every time just to be able to click on these buttons. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here's how our game looks like right now. It looks much better, and we can still click on start game and it starts to play things, it can stop things, and then reset the game. So let's go back to our project and add some AI magic to it now. So the first thing we'll want to do is create a new .env file here. So let's do .env, and in here we'll add this new key, and you have to put your OpenAI API key here. So let me put this off the screen and I'll be right back. Okay, so once your API key is in, let's instantiate the OpenAI client to make the API calls. So for that, let me scroll on the top here, and we'll basically create a new const variable here. Let's do OpenAI equal to new OpenAI API, and to this we'll pass new configuration, and in here we'll pass API key as process.env. whatever key we put in .env file. So which is next public OpenAI API key. And because this is a front-end application, ideally we should not be putting our API key here. And so I will highly advise you to not publish this application as is. And if you want to publish this in production, then please first create a backend server where this API key is hidden, and then make the API call to get this data. Otherwise, you will leak your API key, which can become very problematic. So coming back here, we have our OpenAI client defined, and now we'll make the API call to OpenAI to get the next move. So let's see how we'll do that. So let's first define our prompt. So let me scroll down here and create a new method which will generate our prompt. And the prompt is pretty large, so I'll just paste it here, and this is how it looks like. So we basically have a generate prompt method where we say you're a pro chess player and you're playing a chess match against another pro chess player. The goal is to play to your best effort and try your best to win the game. And then we tell what the color of the current player is. Then we give the board configuration in 2 different forms. And then we say you need to make the next move. Following is a list of the next possible valid moves that you can choose from. And we get that list of moves from game.moves. And then we basically make a list out of it and join them using a new line. Then we again remind ChatGPT that it should pick a move only from the above list of possible moves and not just any random moves. And then the intention here is to try your best to pick a move that maximizes your chance of winning. And then we tell ChatGPT how we want the response to be. We say it should be in JSON format. This is the format it should be following. And then we give an example where we say the output should be move and the move is E5. And then we further instruct saying that the return JSON should be valid and should be able to be passed by json.parse in TypeScript. And then we further say that the response should only contain the JSON response and nothing else, no explanation or anything. So this is how the prompt looks like. Now let's send this prompt to ChatGPT and get our next move. So going back to the method where we had our next move, let's do const prompt equal to generate prompt. So we get our prompt here, and then we'll make a call here, response, which will be call API, let's say. And then we should be able to parse the response. So json.parse the response, and we can say that's the move. So that will basically be .move. And then we'll return this move. And let me just delete all of this because we don't need it anymore. Now let's see how does this call API looks like. Let's create another method, make API call, or let's call it get next move from GPT. And in here, let's do const response equal to await this dot open AI, and let's make this async dot create. Oh, this should not be this. So create chat completion, and here we'll provide a model. In this case, we'll use GPT 3.5 Turbo because that's the only model I have access to right now. Then in here, we'll take 2 things, prompt and the temperature. So we'll pass the temperature as well. And then we'll declare our messages. Now the messages in this case will be the role as system, and the content can be you are a pro chess player. You will play chess with another player and try your best to win the game. Okay. Then the next message will be as a user, and in this case the content will basically be the prompt, and we get a response here. Now what we need to return here is response.data.choices and the 0th index, basically message.content as string. And let's call this method from up here. So await get next move from GPT. Let's pass our prompt here, and we'll also pass the temperature of the current player because the temperature varies between the 2 instances of GPT. So it will be players current player dot current and dot color. Oops, not color, I meant temperature. Okay, this looks pretty much complete. Just to recap really quick, we had our states defined here. We created our refs because we use set timeouts. We update our refs here. Then we have a use effect. If start changes, then we make a move. Otherwise, we reset our timer. Then in make move, if it's not running, we just return it. If the game is over, we get our winner and set the winner. Otherwise, we get a next move. We make the move in the game. Then we update our moves. Then we get our next player, set the active player to the next player, and update the current move by 1. And then we set the timeout to make the next move. And here we have our prompt, which we then use in our get next move method. We have generate prompt here, get next move from GPT. We pass the response, get the move, and return it back. And then this is how the get next move method looks like. Takes in the temperature, sets the system's role with this content, and gives it the next prompt. We get the content and respond it back. We get the winner here. We basically check if it's checkmate and whose turn it was to determine the winner. Then if it's a draw, then we increase draws for both the players and the winner becomes draw. Otherwise, there is no winner at all. And then we update our players and return the winner. Then we start the game, we reset the game, and the whole UI. Okay, this was a lot. So let's start a server and see the fruits of all of our efforts so far. So let's go to the browser, let's refresh this, and hopefully we'll see a chessboard here. And yes, here it is. So let me increase the size of the screen. Actually, let me reduce this a little. And now let's click on start game and see what happens. So this is AI playing, but there was some error. Let's see. Invalid move. So we already get our first invalid move, which is a very common thing that happens with this. So let's stop the game, reset it, and let's try again. So trying again, it's thinking, and hopefully player 2 will make its move soon. Okay, it's taking too long. I don't like it. Let's look at the network logs. Usually these API calls can be slow. I'll reset the game again and start it again. Looks like it's not making the next move for some reason. Okay, so I found out some things that we should fix. So firstly, for set timeout, we should give some value here, like 100, so that there's enough time for the states to update. Otherwise, things were happening too fast and the program was just breaking. And then the other thing I realized is I use clear interval, where there should be clear timeout. And with these two changes, let's try to run our ChatGPT versus ChatGPT chess game again. So let me just refresh this just for the sake of it. And now let's click on start game. And now we can see both the players are fighting. And now this game will keep going. Well, I'll be quiet and let you guys enjoy the game. Okay, now here we see our next error, which is 429, which is basically getting throttled. So to fix that, let's update our timeout again and let's increase this to, let's say, 1000. Otherwise, the API calls were being made too fast and hence we got throttled. So let me just refresh this and we can start our game again. But before we do that, let's add one more thing. So scrolling down to where we use our prompt, which is get next move from GPT, let's add a retry just to be safe. And we can do it like this. Let retries left equal to 3, while retries left, we can run everything that we have been doing so far. And let's actually wrap this in a try catch in case there's any error. So try catch, and let's put E here, and let's paste everything that we copied. And if it fails, we'll do retries minus minus, and we can do a log statement as well, retries remaining, and we can just do retries left. And there's also one more configuration of this create chat completion. We can give it a timeout. So we can simply put a timeout of 10 seconds, let's say. Sometimes the API call does take long and then it just gets stuck. So this will be a good way to break out of it. Okay, everything is compiled. Let's go back to our browser. Let's restart the game and hit start. And time to enjoy our players fight against each other. Okay, looks like we have a winner. The winner is player 2, who was creative enough. So let's run through a few more games and see how things look like. And before we do that, let's add a few more things on the UI, the wins and the draws. So we have wins, which we store as wins, and then the draws, which should be the same value for both of them, but that should be fine. We can already see Vince's 1 here for player 2. Well, let's run another game. Reset and start. Okay, well, that was fun. Now, some of the observations that I have as I was building this project and as I made ChatGPT play against another ChatGPT, there were a lot of illegal moves sometimes. That is, it will try to make a move which is just not correct. And many a times, the games will just be a draw. And that could be because of stalemate or actual draw, but there were just too many cases where there wasn't a single winner. And obviously, the moves weren't strategic at all. I noticed that sometimes it would fail to take down a piece, or it will just keep going back and forth without even touching the piece which it can take down. And on that note, it gets stuck in loops sometimes, where it just keeps moving the same piece back and forth multiple times until it breaks out of that loop. Well, so how can we improve the performance? I guess we'll have to train ChatGPT on these chess games. Currently, it's just trained on a large corpus of data, which is not specific to chess, so it's not very specialized. And of course, there's always about prompts and how much you can prompt engineer them. It took me quite some time to get the right prompt so that ChatGPT can play chess, and in a lot of my tries, it just kept making illegal moves. Well, if there any other way you can think of how the performance can be improved, then please post them in comments. Well, that's all I had for this video. I hope you had fun building the chess game and having ChatGPT play against ChatGPT. And if you had fun, then please don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And you can show me your support by buying me some coffee or joining me on Patreon. And please feel free to fill out the form to set up one-on-ones with me, where we can discuss anything and everything about computers and coding. Well, I'm working on the next video and that should be coming out soon. In the meantime, you might want to check out the video on your screen and learn more about ChatGPT and what else you can do with it. Well, that's all for now. I'll see you next time.